Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Season 6, Episode 18 of the Roast West Coast Coffee Podcast. I'm Ryan Wolt, and this is the show where I bring you the stories of coffee professionals, entrepreneurship, and coffee smarter education. It feels really good to be back in the closet interviewing people. Roast West Coast is going to be finishing the season strong with 2 great interviews, starting with this one today with David Yardley of MoonGoat Coffee. MoonGoat has 2 locations in Orange County and has been around since 2018. You can check out @MoonGoat Coffee on Instagram if you want to see photos of the shops we're talking about, or if you want to take a friendly detour through roastwestcoast.com to get to those links, I won't complain. Today I'm drinking a natural washed Guatemala out of one of my favorite green mugs. I hope your favorite coffee cup is full too, because it's time for this interview with David Yardley of MoonGoat Coffee in Orange County, California, on the Roast West Coast Coffee Podcast. That said, David, welcome to the Roast West Coast Coffee Podcast. If you could do me a favor, let everyone know who you are and who you work for and what your role is there.
Absolutely. My name is David Yardley, and I work for MoonGoat Coffee. And I always joke that I do the job that nobody else wants to do. So, handyman, occasionally I roast a batch of coffee, but in all seriousness, my biggest and most important job is I kind of head up the coffee program. So I do all the green buying, and I help set the training and make sure that we're brewing better coffee than we were yesterday and not as good as it will be tomorrow.
What kind of coffee did you drink this morning?
I had a cappuccino to start the morning. I was at one of our shops, so I love to drink a cappuccino, whether it's my shops or somebody else's, to help kind of understand what's going on. It tells you how the milk is being textured. It tells you how the espresso's pulling. So that's what I had this morning. And then I've definitely had at least a couple of cups of batch brew of whatever's been laying around since then. Less scientific on those. It's more just for the desired effect.
Always good. We're talking late morning rather, and I was thinking to myself, do I have time to brew another coffee or not? Should I run down the street? What should I do?
Right.
And I decided to do it myself today, so I'm very excited about that. I want
I'm
to,
proud of
before
you.
we get into MoonGoat, thank you. Before we get into MoonGoat and everything that comes with it, I want to ask about you and just kind of learn a little bit about your coffee backstory, your life backstory. Was there some sort of experience with coffee that made you think, this is something I'm interested in?
I think the first experience is not unique. I had an Ethiopia natural in about 2007, 2008 that made me change my mind about coffee for the first time. It was a Stumptown, Mordikoff, organic. I remember all those details. I have a picture of the bag still, lurking around. Because I already knew how to do pour-overs and those sorts of things, but I just never had coffee that tasted that good. So that changed my mind. But that was I knew I liked coffee at that point. It was in 2013 where I had another epiphany. I went to UC Davis. They were doing their inaugural coffee science seminar to see if they were going to make a degree on it. And I signed up for it. I told my boss I'm taking a week off, impromptu, but I'm going for this. And she gratefully approved it. And I went for a week to UC Davis and then took every class that I could on coffee science after that. And that was really when I knew it was going to go from a hobby, a passion to a career. That's when I knew I was going to do nothing else.
Were you working in coffee at the time where that was applicable, or was it something outside of your worldview?
Kind of. I was a supply chain manager for Starbucks. So I was in coffee, but I wouldn't call it specialty coffee. Even though I was on the Siren retail side, the specialty side of Starbucks, Starbucks is more of a cult. If we're talking about world religions of coffee, Starbucks is one of the mini cults, and it's a cult of personality that does not revolve around coffee quality. So I would say specialty coffee is defined by quality more than anything else. And Starbucks is the opposite of that. It's defined by consistency, and that's it, right?
Was there a point back then between '07 and 13 where you might have gone in a different direction and not been in coffee at all?
Oh, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, cool, I got this cool, corporate job at Starbucks. I'm just gonna like do the hop, right? I'm gonna jump from Starbucks to who knows, I'd probably be like a boring project manager for Amazon or something, right? It was like I was thinking, yeah, I can make projects come to life. That's all I was thinking. Not I'm gonna be in coffee specifically.
So then let's get a little bit of the history of MoonGoat then.
Yeah,
How did that come about? Was there another stop between Starbucks and where you're at now? What was
totally.
that path to kind of this launch? And if I'm not mistaken, there were two original owners, Mark and also
Yeah.
David. And
Yep.
then
Yep.
how did you come into that
They're
mix?
still there. They're still there. Don't worry. They haven't gone anywhere. But I'll try to give you the shortest condensed thing. So my first job when I was in high school was at a local roaster called Diedrich Coffee. And it's the same brother of the guy who makes the roasters in Sandpoint, Idaho.
Yeah, Martin. Martin and his
Martin. Mhm.
he now has Keen Coffee, I believe, in Southern California.
Exactly. Yep. He has Keen Coffee. Never worked for Keen Coffee, but worked for Diedrich Coffee. And I didn't know anything. It was just a local cafe. It was a place my sisters like to hang out. So I was like, I'll get a job there, right? So my sisters are older than me, my two older sisters. So they were the ones that are responsible for getting me kind of wanting to work in a cafe. I left there, had a couple jobs in IT. Great Recession happened in 2008, got laid off, decided to get a job at Starbucks because my old Diedrich's manager was at Starbucks. Worked my way up from being a barista to store manager and multi-store manager and then supply chain. And I thought, yep, going to parlay this for the rest of my career. Worked there for 9 years. Left, I want to say around 2015, 2016, and I did a consulting project with Curtis, the brewing company, largely on a brewer that never came to life. I'm trying to remember. Essence Brewers was what the name of it was. We called it the Unicorn when it was R&D stages. We showcased it at one SCA, and it never made it to real market, but it was really cool. Did cold brew. So that was a fun project. And I had a little bit of an engineering background because my family has an engineering firm. So I knew a little bit of what I was doing in that realm, but just through happenstance. And then from there, I just did consulting and helped the family engineering firm until MoonGoat opened in 2018. So a little bit of foggy years.
Yeah, how did you connect with MoonGoat then?
Yeah, so it's actually my business partners. I never wanted to open a coffee shop. I was like the last person. You wouldn't have caught me saying, anytime up until now that, oh gosh, I want to open up a coffee shop. I wanted to work in coffee. I wanted to have a career in coffee, but my business partners had a passion for making a cafe that had a big space and was open late and had good music scene attached to it. And currently, MoonGoat does, and especially our Costa Mesa shop, our flagship shop, is got over 100 seats, and we have events at least 2 or 3 times a week. And that's what my business partner Mark focuses on. And then I just make sure the coffee underlying that is actually high quality. So coffee and a little bit with the food as well. And then our other business partner, Dave, was awesome. When nobody's going to give you a loan when you're a startup as a coffee company, and he really helped us on the finance side.
Very cool. It's all in part, where those connections meet and how you can find your way into a situation. You
Totally.
mentioned something just now about the size of the space, and you have two
Yeah.
locations, I believe,
Yep.
the one you mentioned and then Garden Grove.
Hmm.
But having that big space, was that an advantage or disadvantage over the last couple of years, especially the first, say, 2 years of the pandemic? I would think it'd be
Yeah.
helpful, but I also know the environment north of Camp Pendleton, say in Southern California, was different than it was south of Camp Pendleton.
Sure, probably. It's so funny because even between Garden Grove and Costa Mesa, they're not that far apart. As the crow flies, they're like 7 miles. It takes like 20 minutes to drive those 7 miles, but they aren't too far apart. Yet the customers are totally different between them because we opened so close to COVID. In my mind, as an operator, I was just making another pivot, just like all the other pivots we had made. So of course, it was a worldwide pandemic. I would never wish it happened again. However, it kept us flexible, just made us think about things differently. And having those big spaces, if you had asked me when we started, I didn't even want spaces that big. But that's where having business partners can really help you stretch and grow. It helped me open my mind. And I think those big spaces were an advantage. However, that's where I would say, like, the smartest person in any organization is the we, not the one person. So that's where just relying on other people's strengths, expertise, and ability to help share that workload makes it possible. And not just like, I'm not just some brilliant guy who thought about it, a grand master plan. It takes a group, right? It takes a village.
Sure. I can certainly appreciate that. I find it hard to trust business partners. I've had
It
some
is.
rough goes of it in the past, but it's something that I'm
Yeah.
actively working on because I've always experienced that you go further with a group because
Yep.
they see the things you don't.
Yep. Go fast, go by yourself, go further, go with a group, right? Something like that. And I totally agree. I mean, that's the hardest part is it is a relationship, right? And any intimate relationship, whether it's finances or romantic or whatever, it's complicated. It's really complicated.
Oh, sure. My wife and I would joke about how my business partner and I were just as married as she and I were. We had joint bank accounts, we had,
Yep. Yep.
agreements, we were legally bound to each other. So it certainly was
Oh yeah.
a long process of dissolving those two things.
Yes.
My next question is the name MoonGoat, and I'll be honest, I
Yeah.
only reached out to you in the first place because I saw the name and I thought, oh, I love the name. Where does that come from? What does it mean to you? I mean, how did that, become what it is?
Well, what's funny is because when I joined the company, we had a different name and it was terrible. I won't even say it on the podcast. I'll say it once we're done recording, just so that everybody sends an email to ask me what it is. I'll reply to anybody who sends an email to david@moongoat.com about what it is, but I'm not going to say it on the podcast. But when Mark, our other business partner, is like, "Hey, this name came to me in a dream. It's called MoonGoat." And I was like, that name's worse, somehow worse than the bad name. But he's like, wait, we've been talking about the history of coffee. Goats discovered coffee. We're going to be open late. You got the moon. They kept the goat herd up at night. There's the moon symbolism in the Caldi story, the goats bleeding at the moon. And it just came to me in a dream. We got to call it MoonGoat. And I was like, I still wasn't convinced, but then we had no better names, and so it stuck.
Well, and it's MoonGoat, one word, I believe, right?
It
It's
is
all
one word, but
mashed together.
everybody says it wrong, does it wrong, and we kind of love it. You just embrace it.
Interesting. So let's get to coffee then.
Yeah.
You're the one doing some of this coffee operation stuff. You had
Yep.
history, as you mentioned, on the supply side of things at
Hmm.
Starbucks, giving you some insight
Yep.
into how to source coffee and how those chains
Totally.
work. How did you go about that into MoonGo? What was your idea behind the coffee you're offering people? Was the idea that the cafe experience was first, or the coffee was first? Is it all in the same plane? I'll let you kind of run with that how you will.
Totally. I mean, my thought process was really on the supply side of coffee. I wanted to make a statement. That's probably like my biggest passion point is what we're able to do in specialty coffee today would not have been possible 10 years ago, even, right? When I first started working at Starbucks, there wasn't the possibility to have direct trade relationships, to have the sort of communication we have with farmers and producers. And really, I think to tell that story, but also to preserve a product that is on the brink of extinction, with the average coffee producer age being 63 years young or 64, depending on what year, and it's not getting any younger, right? So we've got incentive as people who enjoy coffee to help the younger generation pick up that, but also to make the job a better job for that younger generation. And I think we have that power with our purchasing, I guess, dynamic, and to do it in the right way. So I'm very passionate, and we even have I've got like a green coffee purchasing manifesto where I have like priorities, and I keep us on track to that. Of course, it's all the boring things, right? Like we want to pay a better price. We want to do all that stuff, and super important boring things, but also some creative things where we want to encourage farmers with biodiversity. We want to encourage farmers who are using good water sources. We want to encourage, locations that have biodiversity or growing more than just coffee as a crop. So those are some of the like deeper things we have in our green buying philosophy. But that's my biggest passion, and everything kind of is an extension of that. So even how we present coffee in our shops, we have a pretty dark roast coffee. We have a milk-based espresso blend that may not be, it may be a little deeper than some of our specialty neighbors in terms of coffee choices. However, you look at what a farm grows. They don't grow only micro lots. So you have to have a place for these producers to sell their coffee into multiple markets. And we're not all things to all people. We don't buy lower than 80 point coffee ever. We never have, probably never will. I guess never say never. However, we even try to think of, for producers, where can you sell that coffee if you need help doing that in the right way? So we even partner with a couple of organizations that are nonprofits that use lower quality coffee than we do to help divert some of those things. One of them is called Growers First, nonprofit that does really great work in buying really low quality coffee for a specialty standard, but helps a farm get sold out.
Sure. You mentioned something that seems like a really big challenge in that you are encouraging or trying to encourage better working conditions, higher wages, biodiversity, extra efforts at the farm level. But you're
Yeah.
based in Orange County. So how do you go about
Yes,
doing that other than just making buying choices, or is that really the primary way you do that? And obviously you work with growers first, but is there more to it than that?
totally. Yeah. Work with Growers First. Donate to World Coffee Research. We do a pretty decent amount for every pound we buy. I think we're at a quarter per pound, which is, I think, higher than their average match, but by a good margin. Those are probably the two bigger picture things that we're doing. However, even just with our purchasing philosophy, it's not us always going to these countries and auditing of farms practices. It's sometimes helping producers come to the US to see how their product is finished. So our goal is for every visit we take to a producing country, we also want to take that same dollar allotment we would put towards that and use it to bring a producer or a group out here. And we've been successful with that in a few different countries. So that's been a really cool exercise for us, and just I think a little bit different than the typical green buying program, because to me it's like the technology is so good. When I'm on a coffee farm, I'm showing them what's going on with my roast curves, what's going on with how we're packaging it, whatnot. But then we can do the opposite, have them come here, see that for themselves, see how it lives out, and then they show me pictures on the farm of what kind of trees they have, biodiversity, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I have not actually heard that from another roaster out of maybe 60 or 70 of these interviews. That's really interesting that you do that.
There you go. And it's the same travel budget, right? We have like a small travel budget, and we just use it both ways.
Yeah. You used the term, a big term, brink of extinction, and you
Hmm.
mentioned specifically age. Coffee is also facing climate changing or weather pattern changing that's affecting coffee. And on the other side of that, the demand for coffee, in particular in China and India and other countries, is growing. How is
Hmm.
that going to impact you? How do you think about that as a person who is buying coffee now?
Yeah. I mean, and I have small purchasing power, right? 2 containers a year right now, but we will hopefully continue to grow. That came out of buying, trying to buy split bags from people at first, right, or buying scraps. So we've grown a lot in our purchasing power, and I think we'll continue to. I think part of it will be good for specialty coffee because there won't be the $1 gas station cup of coffee in 15 years. I really don't believe that that's. I don't think that the system will support that. So in some ways, some of those macro lens shifts will be good for the industry, that the people that you're talking to, the coffee you're probably drinking, the coffee that I'm buying, and the coffee that I'm selling will definitely get more expensive, more elusive, and that'll be good at first. And then I look down 50 years from now, and I'm not sure that we will really be able to drink coffee the way that we do. I think that it will be a much more special thing, whether you're in India, China, or the US. I just don't think that coffee will be able to be as large a cash crop as it currently is. So I'm looking even, in terms of, will people give up their daily fix? Certainly they will not. I would say in 50 years, you'll probably see a lot more drinkable cacao. Theobromine will give you that same kick in the morning, and cacao is a lot less prone to the extinction events that coffee will have, or at least the decline in production that coffee will have. So, but I mean, that's like 50 years. We're not talking about, I'm not like a doomsday person who's saying like tomorrow, but it'll be gradual. It'll feel natural. You'll just wake up one day and your grandkids will be going to their local cacao bar instead of coffee bar.
With those beans that you've received, which I believe you guys refer to as seeds on your website
We do.
instead of
We
beans.
try to. I slip up though.
It's just a habit. Earlier this year, I think you won a gold medal at the Golden Bean Coffee Competition. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, silver, but still silver. I mean, thousands of entries and a dozen or so, winners. So we're really proud of that. Like 5,000 entries and not a huge amount of winners. Less than
I can say
five.
it again. You won silver medal at the Golden Bean Competition, and we'll clip and edit.
Yep.
No, just kidding.
Yep.
But why did you decide to enter a competition, and how is that different, than the preparation just for the coffee that you're making every day?
Totally. We didn't really approach it that different because we wanted to really see, we knew that some people would totally make it a grain buying competition. How expensive could the coffee that they bought be? Our goal was to really just put our kind of daily drivers in that competition and see how it shook out. So we submitted 6 coffees, and all 6 of them either got a bronze or a silver. It wasn't our milk-based espresso blend. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't our cheap coffee, but it was all of our single origins basically, and a couple blends, a couple of our seasonal blends, and they all medaled, which was great to see. But even more important for us was to see how it stood amidst a group of peers, some of them who had just amazing coffee. The companies that won, Prairie Lily, like unbelievable roast profiles, great green coffee selections. They're a true winner, and it's a totally blind competition. So it was fun to be there and see how it's tasted and taste alongside some of the judges that actually made the final calls. All the roasters who entered kind of helped sort through the bottom of the barrel, get those out of the way. And it's a really cool competition. And it was just a litmus test to make sure we're doing our job right, that we feel like it's actually happening the way that we want it to.
Just talking about beans, I saw something on your Instagram just this week, I think. Well, I saw it this week, called the Cool Beans Program. And it said,
Yeah.
like, if you email David at moongoatcoffee.com, I'll answer your questions. Wonder if you could tell
Yes.
me what that is
Yeah.
and why you would have coffee seeds in a freezer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm super excited about that. And it's been super successful. I thought I was going to have to like really muscle that program into people's, lexicon, or I was really going to have to like do a ton of tastings to show people it was worth it. And it's been selling on its own, which has been amazing. We kind of modeled it after, what does a restaurant do to sell their by the glass wines? So we have a menu that's separate. There's 10 or so coffees on it. They're only available via pour over. You can't get them we can't even get them as an ice pour over. We've dialed in one profile that works for them, and we use automated pour over machines, the Curtis Seraphim or Gold Cups. And they're great, especially with they've got kind of like a clever dripper kind of design. It holds in the bloom, and then after there's more than an ounce of water sitting, it starts to dispense and you have fresh water flowing over. So you get really nice high extraction in a really short period of time, under 3 minutes. So really like the way that they're extracted. And they're just the lots that we really can't justify filling an espresso hopper with, or can't justify putting on batch brew, they wouldn't be appreciated. Even if we could sell them for the same price, we'd dump out too much. So we 20 grams at a time in a test tube, fully hermetic sealed. You never get freezer burn more than even like a zipper lock or a vacuum seal bag, because it's just such a tight seal. And we love it because it allows you to have those 10 different coffees without them going stale. We freeze them at the peak roast period. So whether it's 5 to 15 days off roast, we kind of taste it along the journey, freeze it at that flash point, and then offer it as pour overs. And we love it because you'll have a rare fermentation, a rare origin, what have you. We have an Ethiopia Wush Wush right now. We've got really cool fruit fermentations from Colombia. We have Lorena, which is a naturally caffeine-free variety that grows in just a few places. So just fun coffees.
So it's similar to like if you were to go to a fancy wine bar and they had their specialty wine by the glass only sort of
Yep.
option is how I'm understanding
Yep.
that, which based on what we were just talking about is kind of how I see some of the future of coffee as well. Is
Me too.
maybe I'm not drinking as much coffee every day but the coffee I am drinking is a true luxury, which I don't know that everyone looks at coffee as a luxury item, but it really is.
Nobody does, man. Everybody thinks I bookmarked a silly TikTok video recently because I saw this guy and he's like, I judge the Italian restaurant that I go to by if I order an espresso at the end of dinner instead of dessert. If they don't give it to me for free, I'm never going back. And he's joking, some Jersey Shore guy, but it's like that's what people's expectation is, that coffee is free, right? Or coffee is $1, not that it's this special thing, this magical fruit, that grows nowhere where we enjoy it. And it's crazy, right?
I only judge restaurants by the quality of their toilet paper because I believe that if they have good toilet paper in the bathrooms, they care about their employees.
There
That's
you
my
go.
policy.
Perfect. I like that judgment.
Yeah, it's important because you can save money on toilet paper. It's one of those things as a restaurant manager that I've experienced. Like that single ply is a lot cheaper than the good stuff.
Way.
Southern California and the Orange County in general in your region has been growing exponentially as a coffee zone.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in North County, San Diego. I can walk to 5 coffee roasters, like local coffee roasters, and get a really good cup of coffee.
Totally.
How have you seen that in your area in particular? And do you see that growth continuing? And you had mentioned you guys are hoping to grow as well. What does that mean for you?
I mean, for me, what I see that's exciting is not that our customers were stealing from another specialty coffee shop. I think we're stealing our customers from 7-Eleven, from a gas station, from their K cup at home. And I think most specialty shops are. I think that that's the bigger market. When you look at 80% of adults in our area are drinking coffee at least once a week, you've got a huge marketplace. You way more than any of our shops could handle. So I think it's just exciting to see. I welcome anybody who wants to jump into the specialty coffee market. Opposite of me, I never thought I wanted to open up a coffee shop. I encourage anybody who wants to do it because I don't think we're going to hit the limit anytime soon of what's possible within this space over the next few years. I think you could put one across the street from another and we would interpret what we're doing differently enough that the pie is big enough for all of us to take a slice. If a couple, 7-Eleven stops selling as much coffee, or a Starbucks goes out of business, not out of business, but has to close one of their locations, I won't sleep any worse than I did last night. I'll sleep like a baby. So, and I even look at like generational shifts. Starbucks is to this generation what 7-Eleven was to the last generation, in that it's a convenience store. It's something that's convenient and easy. Yes, you can get caffeine there, but it's not special anymore.
What about you've been in this industry now on various levels for what's almost 15, 16 years,
Yeah. Yep. More than
some
15. Yeah.
capacity.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's something that surprised you or something you've learned kind of through experience that you take with you as you're looking forward into the future?
Oh man. I would say the biggest thing is every job you have is more similar no matter what industry you've been in. Because, if I've been a server, as a second job. I've worked at clothing stores during Christmas just to pay bills. I've done all sorts of random things, right? And every job is more similar than it is different. And the one common thread is that if you can help influence people or help people find what they're looking for, basically, customer service is something that exists no matter what industry or career you're in. So I would just encourage anybody, especially I'm a coffee nerd, and I assume most people who listen to this podcast are as well. You can't brush up on your people skills enough in order to set your future self up for success. So that would be like the one thing that I've learned is that, yes, of course, like watching all the James Hoffman videos you can help. But at the end of the day, if you can convince somebody with the shortest sentence possible as to why they should be drinking better coffee or different coffee, that will serve you better than knowing, how to calculate extraction yield without a calculator, right?
Sure. Well, and I think part of Mr. Hoffman's internet celebrity is because he's able to communicate and he's able
Yeah,
to break down complicated coffee science projects for someone like me to understand, who's not
totally.
a
No,
coffee
no,
expert.
I'm say that, and that should be required reading or watching for everybody who is in the
Yeah, I didn't
coffee
take it
industry.
that way, but I think that idea that communication between you and a customer or you and a potential, buyer of your product
Yep.
is part of it. And you see that struggle on people who are so focused on one side of the business or instead of the other. And you mentioned we'll bring it back around having a business partner who picks up in
Yeah,
the places where maybe you aren't as strong. That's the value, a
totally.
huge value add there. What
Yep.
didn't we cover today about MoonGoat coffee that we should know about or that you want to draw attention to? We're talking on Halloween, and
Yeah,
this show is going to be out in a few days, so it's very timely.
nice. Love
What's
it.
what did we miss?
I mean, I love the things that you brought up. I always take every opportunity to brag about the special coffees we have and the special coffees that we have coming up. But I guess the thing to stay tuned for in a few days, I'm trying to think what we've got that's coming out. We're doing an in-house cryo desiccated coffee or freeze dried. So I'm really excited about that. We
What do,
partnered with
what does that mean? Like when does the freeze drying happen?
part of it is we did in collaboration with the Chapman University's food science department. So really excited to have partnered with them and hired a couple of their master's level students to help us kind of pioneer this program. So I'm really excited about that. It's nothing you would have even known about, but can tell you about and tease just because it's something to me, our mission statement, kind of for us to know and to help us guide our decisions with customers is to make coffee better, easier daily. And when we looked at where are we not doing that for our customers, it is in that like very entry level customer. How do we get that person off a K-Cup? And so having basically an instant option is the best way to do that because we tasted these companies that are doing actually really great work of making better K-Cups, but it's still not good enough, for me to put my name on it versus freeze dried. What we do is we extract a concentrate. We extract it cold, so it never has hot water touching it, but under vacuum pressure. So then that has a really great extraction yield. We're talking about always 23% extraction yield plus. Freeze drying that concentrate, and when you freeze dry that concentrate, you still have some volatiles. You still have some organics that have never been hit with heat. So when you hit it with water for the first time, it smells like a cup of coffee. So we're really excited about that. Some of the tricks that we do, that I should probably keep as trade secrets, but whoever's listening to this has earned it. Is we brew under vacuum. That vacuum's drawn with nitrogen, so it never sees oxygen. And then we vac seal the liquid, freeze it into form, and then freeze dry it or cryodesiccate it. So it's a really cool process we kind of did in tandem with Chapman University, and really excited because that will launch. Gosh, I'm looking at the date 2 weeks from now. So a week and a half after this podcast launches. So stay tuned. It'll come.
Yeah, very cool. And when my mom comes out with that same product, a year from now, where she found out about
it. I'm glad to give her the secrets.
I started off the show by asking you what you had this morning, and I'm gonna end the show the same way by asking, when you're not at work, when you go out into the world and you stop into some random coffee roaster on the side of the road, what do you order for yourself?
I mean, if it's before noon, I do like a tight milk beverage, a cappuccino of sorts. And you know what? I'm the kind of person who usually orders 2 or 3 drinks, even just for myself. So, kind of see what they are proud of just by advertising, or what they chose to write a copy line about or are trying to promote. So I'll usually order another coffee thing like that, whether it's a pour over, a batch brew, or cold brew, whatever it is that, you go to Mostra and you can tell they like their cold brew. You can go to, other places, you can tell they like their single origin. So I like to just have a variety, and I love to support local coffee shops. I still like going to them on a weekly basis, because when I go into my shop, I get hit with problems. And when I go into somebody else's shop, I get hit with solutions. So I love supporting other places.
David, I really appreciate you coming on the show and just kind of sharing with everyone about MoonGoat. And thanks for being part of Craft Coffee.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to be part of it. And there are so many people doing it so well. It's an exciting industry and kind of a baby of an industry in a way, just because, it's been around for a while, but gosh, the leaps we've taken in the past 10 years have far outpaced, have been exponential in comparison to the years previous. So.
Okay, to recap. David's turn into specialty coffee began with a week-long seminar at the University of California, Davis. That seminar turned into an elective course, which turned into an entire coffee center facility, make that 3 facilities, where they're doing coffee research and developing coffee education programming at the undergrad, graduate, and continuing education levels. MoonGoat's success depends on the skills of not just David, but his partners, and their team, who all bring different skills and specialties to the table. I thought their effort to bring producers here to their shop in America instead of just taking origin trips was a great step forward in creating mutually beneficial coffee relationships. And their recent success at competition was born out of the desire to see where their coffee offerings stand against some of their peers. The medals at the Golden Bean competition would imply that they stand up fairly well. David mentioned split bags, which I wanted to define. It's just what it sounds like. It's where multiple roasters, often very small or micro roasters, purchase a sack of green coffee together and split the beans. More than just in the operations department, MoonGoat is also pushing forward on coffee innovations. They have their cool beans offerings on the high end, and their soon-to-be-released instant offering being a driver to bring new craft coffee drinkers into the fold. There's plenty of room here. Finally, if you want to ask David a question about coffee or about those programs, you can email him at roast@moongoatcoffee.com. Okay, despite what might be implied, sometimes on this show, the cult of coffee isn't exclusive to aficionados or fanatics. The coffee community welcomes all. I'm going to share links and more about MoonGoat in the Roast West Coast Coffee newsletter on roastwestcoast.com. On to some closing business. Speaking of that newsletter, did you know that this podcast is a listener and reader-supported creative effort? It's true. If you've been enjoying listening or reading, please consider subscribing. The podcast is always free, but the support that comes in through those paid subscriptions really helps us grow. Also helping the pod grow are our coffee industry partners, including Café Laterre, Mostra Coffee Company, Steady State Coffee Roasting, Camp Coffee Company, Coffee Cycle Roasting, Ignite Coffee Company, Maria Coffee, Cape Horn Coffee Importers, and Ascend Coffee Roasters. They all have a bunch of really cool, crazy things going on, but a special congratulations to Mostra Coffee on celebrating their 8th anniversary with the hugely successful Mostra Land experience. I don't like telling people what to do, but you should mark your calendars for late October 2023 so you can get a jump on getting Mosterland 9 tickets. I have 2 last requests of you today. First, please go get your flu shot, your COVID booster, or even your first COVID shot. It isn't too late. Listeners of this show know that my amazing wife works in the school system with kids, mostly special needs children, and many of whom are considered at risk. Staying healthy and getting those shots helps prevent the spread of viruses, which in turn protects those kids and adults who don't have the benefit of strong immune systems, not to mention the rest of the human beings in your orbit. It's a very good thing. And second, treat yourself to a good cup of coffee, or a latte, or a macchiato, or espresso sometime soon. I'm sure you've earned it. This episode of the Roast West Coast Coffee Podcast has been written, produced, and recorded by me, Ryan Wolt. I hope this episode has found you happy, healthy, and with at least enough sanity to make it through the day. Always tip your baristas, and be sure to drink good coffee.